here today, we want to promote academic excellence, academic and research excellence. And we want to share knowledge, strengthen research skills. And we also want to engage and inspire upcoming scholars like those of us who are in this prestige during our master's degree. So I want to appreciate also Mr. Joseph Malambo for this initiative and to recognize the presenters and Nzovwa Banda and Lole. I'm also appreciating those attendees who are actually here prioritizing to learn. So what we expect tonight we'll look at research problem presentation by Mr. Nzovwa Banda and thereafter, we'll have a few questions and answer sessions. Then later on, we'll have presentation tips by Mr. Joseph Malambo. Hope everyone is following. So I encourage everyone actually to engage and let us who participate when it's time to ask questions, let us ask all the questions necessary. Let us learn together and respect people. And also let us keep our mics on you. So for now, I think I will invite the first presenter, Madam Nzovwa Banda, who is a PhD student, and will share insights on research problems. Thank you so much. Madam Nzovwa, it's your turn.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me very well. I know I'm having some internet challenges, so just confirm that you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right, perfect. Everyone see my screen? Hello?
The network has started breaking from there.
But we can see your screen. Okay, can hear you now. Yes.
I will be presenting on the statement of the problem, and it is my hope that at the end of research, okay, I got a notification that I dropped off for a bit. Okay, so getting right into it, and so I'll be cruising through what I have prepared for today. First things first. What is a research problem? So a research statement of the problem. So the statement of the problem, it's considered as the anchor for the entire study that you will be conducting. It's something that when someone looks at your core document, your research thesis, your proposal, everything, it should be clear to that person what problem exactly you are studying, what challenges your research is trying to solve. Therefore, it must be straightforward, it must be focused, and it must be backed by evidence from literature or from practice. It is not supposed to be vague, and it is not supposed to be an emotional statement. That is to say, it's not supposed to be about how you feel, but there has to be some evidence to it. You have to ensure that it is clear what is at stake if you do not and if you do not propose a solution to the problem that you're studying, right? And then it should represent the gap. So the gap in this case is the core piece of your statement, the core piece of your statement of the problem. what is it that is missing, what is it that is not working as it should be, and for this you state what the ideal situation is supposed to be, or how it should be, or what the best practice should look like. And then you show what also the situation on the ground is, and you do this by showing the data from literature or from observation. So now what I'm doing is just giving an overview. We will of course get into this as we progress. So the other part of what a statement of problem is, it's supposed to show why it's important for you to address the gap that you have identified in the previous point that I've just raised. Which is actually a form of justification. Why are you conducting this study? Why is your study important, and why is it worth pursuing? For those who are able to get funding for your research, why should someone fund your research? So that is what the statement of a problem is. It also lays the foundation for your objectives, for your questions, because from this you're able to identify what is it that I am trying to achieve, and how am I going to achieve this, as well as what questions do I need to ask for me to have answers that will then address the problem that you are looking at. Okay? So why the statement of a problem matters, as I've said in the previous slide, it's the anchor. So it is around the statement that your research should be built. I have heard others say it is the starting point of every research, because for you to be able to conduct a research, there has to be something that you noted to say, no, this is working in this way. Right now, the situation on the ground is that maybe this particular thing that I'm interested in is not working as it should be. So you have looked at the problem. So it is the starting point. For you to conduct any research, there has to be a problem or a situation that is not correct in your view, and that is where now you build up your research. So it motivates, in a way, it motivates the kind of research what you're researching on. It also, like I said, it influences things like the questions, objectives, and methodology and conclusion. So with regard to the methodology, we know there is methodology, I think, which Mr. Lole is going to talk about. So it influences the kind of methodology that you're going to use, whether you're going to do your research, whether it's going to be qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, and it also depends on all this depends on how you phrase your problem. For instance, if the problem involves people's experiences in their lives, then you will see when you have structured your problem, the statement, you'll be able to see if, say, now this is supposed to be qualitative. When someone reads your documentation, it tells them this particular problem should be using qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. Okay, and then it also helps you look at how you're going to collect your data, the design, the approach that you're going to use, and then also even as you're coming up with the methodology, you look at how you're going to respond to the problem. You have a problem, how do you respond to it? That response, how you're going to respond to it, is a methodology. Moving on, it also influences your conclusion. We know at the end of every research, there's a conclusion that we come to. And in that conclusion, you should be able to say how you have tied up the problem that you had identified for you to begin your research, right? So it shows that you have conducted your research correctly. You have arrived at a conclusion at the end, and this is the problem that I had addressed. These are the findings that on the ground, and now we have come to the conclusion of the research. So if you structure your problem, the statement properly, you will be able to even have a scope within which you're working. It will help you not go outside to collect irrelevant information in your study. So all that is helped by having the correct statement. Okay. So I hope we have heard of what is called the golden thread. There are different ways you can look at it, but with regard to the problem statement, firstly, the golden thread is like an invisible thread, which shows that your research is linked right from the topic all the way to the conclusion. So with regard to the problem statement, you should be able to, it should, right from the title itself, there should be a reflection of what the core issue is, what you're trying to research on. The background, you should be giving some context to the problem that you identified on which your research is being built on. And then the statement itself, it should be able to highlight the research gap that we talked about. We'll see templates that you can use. So you should be able to highlight the research gap that you identified, why it is important for you to conduct this research, what would happen if you do not conduct it. And then your research questions, your objectives, all these are derived from the problem that you may have identified, and then the literature review. From there, now you examine what have others said, what have they done to try and address the problem that I'm looking at, and what is missing. Also, all this is tied to your statement. Methodology, I talked about how it's depending on what you're investigating. And then the findings and the discussions, all these need to be able to respond to the problem. And then again, the conclusion, the solutions, the recommendations that you're coming up with, they should be able to tie up to the problem that you identified. So you can see that all throughout your research, there has to be an invisible connecting thread. Okay, that's just an example of how it should look in your document. So there are different ways that you can structure your statement, different ways, different templates. But of late, I've been seeing there's been a push towards people using this IRCA model. There are some who can say the word, but there's this model, a template that you can has 4 components. There's ideally what should be the case, what should be happening, as opposed to what is happening right now. And then you look at the reality, what is actually happening on the ground. And then you look at the consequences. Why does the gap that you're identifying, the gap that is the difference between what the ideal situation is versus what the reality is, why does this gap matter? What are the consequences? Okay, and then the aim. What is your study going to do to try and address that gap? So this is what the model looks like. That's what the model looks like. So, for example, this is looking at degree holders. This is an example for degree holders. So the ideal situation in this case is people who have degrees may have higher chances of getting a job. That is the expected situation, right? When someone gets a degree, we expect that they should be able to get a job. But the reality is that many people who have degrees are still unemployed, right? So what are the consequences? Consequently, many people may not be motivated to further their studies to a degree level. We have had situations or people say, you don't need a degree to make it in life. That may be where some of these things are coming from, because they have seen that without a degree, with a degree, you find that you may have spent so many years in school, but then you don't find a job. So they say, no, you're better off without a degree. So those are consequences. And then the aim, by this person conducting research, the study is aiming to explore why people who have degrees still remain unemployed. Okay? So with this template, you can actually do it on your own time. Look at what the problem you have identified, and try and fill in those four spaces. You have your themes there, the ideally, the reality, the consequences, and the aim, and then you describe from your problem. See if you are able to fit in each of those parts that are there. Again, this is just one way you can do it. Okay. There is another template. You can take a look. There is another template. I hope it is visible. I tried to make it large there. So this is also similar, but of course in a different way. We'll talk about the comparison between this and the previous template that we looked at, the model that we looked at. So the problem that this is an example, the example used here is the problem that this study addresses is, so similar to the previous slide, you can do this also for your study. So in this case, the significant escalation of climate changes in Uganda, right? What is the evidence that there is significant escalation of climate change? There is the evidence there that they've put. They've put how there was at the top there, you can see there's an increase in national warming levels. They've indicated there. So you can see, just from there, you can see that the evidence that they've included in statistics, it is backed in literature. So you are able to say, this is a problem, this is the evidence that this problem exists. And then the next part there is, this escalation is believed to be influenced by. So in your case, you can say this situation, the situation that you are studying, is believed to be influenced by. So in this case, we talk about what is influencing the escalation of climate change in Uganda. And then again, the evidence by, again, picked from literature. Okay? So you will notice that for, even when you're making a presentation anywhere, or someone is reviewing your work with regard to the statement of the problem, there's always a question that comes up to say, where is the evidence? Okay, where's the evidence? You are saying that this is a problem, but show us where someone has said that this is a problem, or show us evidence in statistics, percentages, look at the national documents, look at the national reports. Be able to pick your problem from somewhere. If you're not able to pick it from statistics, find a study. You know, when you're looking at documents, researchers, journal articles, at the end of the write-up, there's usually a recommendation section. There's usually recommend what other studies need to be undertaken. So you can find different areas. This is just to say that there are different places you can look at for evidence on why you need to do this. And then also the next part, they are going back to our template, critical but understanding issue. So now this is like the aim of this research, right? Similar to what we have looked at in the previous template. So you can take time to look at that later. We have looked at template. Again, presentations they're asking IRCA model we use. Very small. Okay, the tool. So the ideally in the iPad, bring it to the template in Uganda. You can say the ideal situation is that Uganda should be experiencing stable climate conditions. So it wasn't explicitly stated, but you can see that it is implied what the problem that was identified. It is implied that the situation should be. And then the reality from the IRCA template. Sorry, can someone mute Francisca? Francisca, your mic is on. Someone to mute her, please. Okay. Moving on. So the reality in this case, that's during the two models. From the example we saw on Uganda, we can say the reality is that there's evidence of rising temperatures, there's floods, and then there's extreme weathers, right? And then the consequences. The consequences in this case, in the second template we looked at, the model that we looked at, there's environmental and human cost of emission from urban, all those costs that have to go into it. So if there's no solution, these things will still keep happening. And then the aim, this is what I talked about. So with them, the aim is that they're going to apply this model, this tool, to explain the drivers of climate change. So you can have a checklist. Again, there's different templates. Your supervisor may advise, even as you read in literature, you can find different templates, different models. But then some of the basic information that your statement is supposed to have is, number one, it should be based on verifiable evidence. Someone should be able to see that, this is why Nzovwa is saying there's a problem. And this could be backed by data, by information in literature, experiences, but it shouldn't be based on how I feel as Nzovwa say, no, I feel this is a problem. There has to be some backing to it. That goes to speak to the second point. So it should be free from emotion or from personal biases, right? It should be tied directly to research questions and research objectives. If you've attended those presentations, they'll ask you to say, okay, but how does this tie to the rest of your research? That's where now the important thread I was talking about comes in. And then you should be able to show why your study is important, why it is important for you to fix, to find a solution for that problem that you are saying exists. Again, you should be able to clearly identify that there is this research gap, because lucky enough to find funding, they're going to look at things like that, say, what gap are you trying to fix? So we are coming to an end. The final recap, the key takeaways is that define the symptoms, say what is actually happening. Use evidence, not emotion. Make sure the problem ties to every part of your research, so people should be able to follow how you have tackled this problem. And then stick to clear structures. Again, there's many different templates, but then just make it clear that this is the structure. Remember those important components that we talked about. And then a reminder that a clear problem is equal to a focused and impactful study. Again, if you're at USA, you're at GSB, there's the DGRS, I don't know the full name. They give guidance on how you should structure your statement. So some of the requirements are that the statement should clearly state the problem by indicating unanswered questions, gaps or areas that have not yet been understood. It should be supported by a statement or source. And then use simple and objective language, not being comical, not being emotional, not being poetic. Be straightforward. And then it should be stated in a form of a simple declarative statement such as we do not know. Okay? We have come to the end. I was cruising, so I hope Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nzovwa. Okay, so let's have some 10 minutes for questions. Let's ask some questions. 10 minutes. Please let's ask questions. Let them be concise and short, because we have another presentation on methodology. Let's ask questions in the next 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you so much. I think the presentation was very clear. We'll go on to the next presenter, Mr. Matipedza Lole, who is also a PhD student. Look at mute our mics, please. Mute our mics so that we can have an easy flow.
Chair, let me try to share. I think all now is having issues. And let's hope I won't have issues now. Nzovwa, you are still on the line, right? I think on the sharing, if I say the entire screen, I think there are issues. How did you do yours?
I shared, so when you go, I went to window. So I shared a window. I shared the window and then I picked the one that had the PowerPoint, yes.
Okay. Try to do that.
We can see your screen, your emails.
Oh, you are seeing email.
Yes.
there was someone with questions for you, so that I will not. I think Simon has got a question.
No? Yes, I got one question. Thank you very much. I want to find out to you, Madam Nzovwa, why is it that most of the students we fail to come up with research topics? Is it because we cannot identify problems or what? I just need your comment on that. Thanks.
Why we fail to come up with topics? Okay. So I've also struggled. I will tell you that right now I am on maybe the 6th or 7th topic with my study, and I started writing in 2023. That's when I started actually 2022 when I was coming up with a proposal for me to get into school. So I think it's a matter of understanding the things like what should be contained in your topic, how it should be structured. I think that's one thing that we have to understand. And then also there are different people have different ways in which, so I can tell you your topic is supposed to look like this. But when someone else looking at your work can come and say, but no, your work is supposed to look like this. So I think it's a matter of you need to understand like the main components. Remember what I talked about then with the statement of the problem. There has to be a main component. Like this is how this is supposed to be structured. There are different ways of structuring topics, but if you're able to defend yourself, even when someone comes and says, "But Simi, your topic is not straightforward," if you are backed by literature, if you are backed by an example that you're following, I think it should be able to be accepted. But we need to understand. We like to assume that we know how things should be done. We don't want to read in depth because then for you to come up with the topic, you have to see how others have written. And I'm not talking about just looking at one or two, maybe research documents, PhD documents. No. Mary said my supervisor likes to tell me on everything that I ask, he will tell me download 10 PhD theses. So that speaks to the number of research that you have to do before you land on just one thing. I hope that's helpful. Mr. Lole, you made it, so I'll mute myself.
Okay. All right. Can you still see the presentation? Hello, team?
Yes.
And you can hear me loud and clear. All right. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you, team, for the time. Let me quickly present on methodology. My outline, I'll talk about the introduction, try to define what it is and why talk of methodology for research, the types, and the research designs, sampling techniques, data collection, data analysis itself, validity, ethical consideration. These are very important because you can't talk of methodology without these ingredients. So, team, that's the outline. So, what is it? When you talk of methodology, you are referring to a systematic way, of doing things, a theoretical analysis of methods that you are applying in a field of study, whatever you are studying. And of course, whatever you are studying does have concepts, there are theories and there are principles that do guide your research process that you are actually carrying out. And why is it important? Methodology is important because it does give you that structured approach to research. It enhances reliability and validity. Those are very key things when you look at methodology. Whatever you are studying, or if you think of baking, ladies here, you do bake. So how you go about mixing the flour, the other ingredients, the has to be a reliable process that can be validated. Anyone can ask for a of how you can make a score, and you can actually tell them how they can do it, and it can be validated that yes, if you mix flour in these certain proportions, milk and whatever it is, you can actually come up with a score. So validity and reliability is very important. But let me this I think early this morning I had the chance to attend a class by it was led by Dr. Bernard Wakala. I really liked the question that he posed on why methodology at all. So what it does, it helps the researcher to come up with new knowledge. You contribute to new knowledge because you are being innovative. You either come up with a new way of doing things, maybe you come up with a new way of getting treatment, medication for a certain ailment, you are being innovative. Or you can actually go into the existing research methods that are already there, that have been validated, and you're actually identifying knowledge gaps. It's very important for you to do that because without a knowledge gap, how then do you find a way, a method of trying to address that gap? So, also, methodology is a foundation for future research. There are blueprints that other scholars have actually put forward that have been adopted, and over the years, as we need to do find that some of them have been refined, and some context have actually been, extended. Maybe it was a qualitative, and then now there's a quantitative research, and then maybe there are both methods there. It's important. Also, it does enhance dependability. You want to depend on a proven thing, So if you come up with a methodology and you solve a problem or you put forward ideas, you can actually enhance your chances of getting funding because there are people out there who do actually fund people to carry out research. And even in terms of publication, you need to publicize something that is proven, that if anyone can actually read and take a look at it, has got reader and there's transparency. It does also facilitate interdisciplinary collaboration. For someone who's doing social science, they can actually use methods to assess educational interventions, which might attract other areas, your computer science. So there's always room for collaboration. And the types of research processes or methodologies that are there, we do have quantitative research, which focuses on quantifying data. You are dealing with numbers. And you can actually generalize your results from a sample to a population. It's inferential. You have your population and then you take a sample from there. And you utilize statistical tools. So that sample that you take is representing a larger population because there's no way you can study everyone. But there are tools to say, when you are studying this population, you determine your sample size in this manner. And for example, you do use SPSS to do that. There's qualitative research which explores phenomena through non-numerical data. You are emphasizing understanding the human behavior and the lived experience of the people. You can go and stay with a community in Kariba or in Kasani, and you are trying to find out how they live. How do they experience? How do they live? What are their cooking methods? How do they solve their problems? So qualitative research does employ methods such as interviews. You can actually use focus groups of 6 to 10 or 6 to 12 that you can bring together and you're asking them questions, interviews, and maybe a video filming them and recording them. And you can also carry out content analysis using, for example, in vivo. Then there's mixed method where you're now getting the benefit of both research methods. Quantitative, where you've got numbers, and qualitative, where you have people actually telling you what they experience, how they've experienced it. So you are putting a narration to your numbers. That's mixed method now. And when you combine them, you get a broader perspective on your research questions that you are now employing in your method or in your methodology. So the designs, they are not limited to what I'm giving you, but generally, there is a blueprint for conducting the research project, which details procedures for data collection, the measurement, and the analysis. You can have descriptive research, which does characterize the population of phenomena. You can have correlational. Now we are looking at quantitative, where you are examining relationships between variables without implying causation. And when you come to experimental, there is manipulation of variables. You are trying to establish the cause and effect. And again, when you are now doing the numbers quantitatively, there are ways of dealing with each area. And even as you take your samples from your population, it's a very delicate process that you do actually need to master. Because your sample, the sampling techniques will determine how your participants are selected for a study. You don't just go out there and and start pinpointing at people and saying, no, I want to ask you questions. You don't do that. Because if you do that, generalizability and validity will not be there. You should be able to say, if you take a sample of nurses, you ask them about how they are experiencing work conditions in Livingstone, in the Livingstone hospital. That's from that sample, you should be able to tell. You can't just go to a marketplace and you ask how the hospital is being run. You can't do that. So there are two types of sampling. You can either do probability sampling, where each member of the population is actually known, and with a 90% chance of being selected. So there is random sampling stratified, and when you look at that probability, you are having subjective judgment rather than random selection. Now, data collection. There are methods. If you are carrying out a quantitative data collection, you use surveys, questionnaires, experiments, and maybe observational methods, depending on what you are researching on. But when you come to qualitative, there are methods. You use your interviews. They could be structured, or they could be semi-structured or unstructured. So if you structure them, you are giving a guide to say 1, 2, 3, 4, this is how you should be answering. Is maybe multiple choice like kind of thing in your Likert scale or on your Likert scale. Semi-structured, there's the Likert scale, and then there's a section also where someone can actually express their views. It's important to actually hear the voice behind whatever you're trying to research. So you can also use focus groups. People come together, you're carrying out interviews, you're trying to understand them, and even you in ethnographic studies. So a mixed method now, when you are collecting, you really need to make sure that you are combining the appropriate tools. Tools that speak to your quantitative data collection and tools that talk to your qualitative data collection. It's very important in terms of methodology. Even in terms of analysis, it's very important to know how you analyze quantitative data. You see, you are using your descriptive statistics, maybe either through the median or mode. It really depends on what you are studying. Where you are talking of inferential statistics, where you carry out your t-test, your ANOVA, your regression analysis, you are trying to see how do they relate your variables in terms of position, is this causing this, and to what extent are they related at all? If I take this thing out, is it going to affect the other in terms of the result? Now, when you come to qualitative, it's a different story. You are now looking at themes. What themes are coming out from what people are saying? Your content analysis, what is in there? Your grounded theory. What do you come up with after observing or talking to people that you are actually trying to get information from? Is there a new theory emerging? A different theory? How does it compare to the other theories that we've done? It's a totally new thing. You see? So when you are now doing mixed, you are actually integrating what came out from the quantitative analysis and the qualitative, if it is a mixed study. Your findings must be speaking to each other. A lot of times people forget to integrate. You've carried out a mixed study, but your findings are not talking to each other. So why carry out mixed research at all? Now, there are issues of validity and reliability. Very, very key, very important, because your validity is looking at the accuracy of measure that you are actually carrying out. Is your research truly measuring what it intends to measure? Are you talking of people who are failing to get treatment and you are going to the hospital, or you are talking of people who are failing to get treatment and you are going to the car? You see, that is important. So, in those types, in constructs, your validity could be internal, it could be external. All those things must come out, and you must understand and know them. Reliability, I spoke about it earlier on. The measurements that you take or that you get from whatever sample you're working with, are you going to have someone get the same results? Because if you use the same measure on the same data, if you give to any guy who does statistics, he should be able to come up with the same answers from the data you've collected. Very, very important. So there are also issues of test and retest on that reliability, so that you try to establish consistency. It's very important. Of course, there are also ethical considerations. You can't just be going to people and asking them if they've not consented to your line of questioning. They should be fully informed about the nature of the research, and they should voluntarily agree. The issues of confidentiality, you should protect your research subjects. Their privacy is important, and the data that you collect should be stored securely. Also, you should minimize harm. It can either be physical or psychological. You can't go and interview someone who is with HIV and you're asking very sensitive questions. You cause harm, so you can't do that. But obviously, like anything else, methodology does also have its downside or issues that you also, as a researcher, you need to be very much alive to. There's also an element of potential bias in whatever methodology you try to carry out. It could be studying nurses and you're a nurse, and you're also feeling that your management is not paying you accordingly. And your feelings can catch up with you as you try to deal with the data that you've collected. And sometimes you end up tweaking and also adding some sauce, some spices there. So that issue is there in methodology. The issue of generalizability, again, you should be able to say whatever method you take a look at, your findings, you're studying about soldiers, you've spoken with the soldiers. Can it be the same thing on the soldiers from Camp A or Camp B? Can you generalize your findings to be applicable to the line of whatever you are researching along the soldiers, the lines of soldiers, whatever, military, police, whatever it is important. Data interpretation, you should recognize the subjective nature of qualitative analysis and the potential for misinterpretation. Like I said, always, sometimes you will not interpret in the correct manner when you collect the data, depending where you are standing as you carry out your research. So, in conclusion, colleagues, you find that a robust methodology is very crucial for the integrity of any research whatsoever, because your research findings may end up informing policymakers to make decisions. So if If you have something that is not correct, it means the end result is incorrect conclusion. So the researcher needs to understand the various methodologies, the designs, sampling techniques, how you are going to analyze the data. You know, it's one thing to have a statistician do or interpret results for you and you don't understand. And when you are presenting, you are being asked today, you are now saying, no, the guy who did statistics for me, he told me this, no, you can't be doing it's unforgivable. So the only way to avoid such colleagues is to make sure that you are always having self-improvement, because this academic field is always evolving and the standards are always changing and the societal needs and whatever is happening in our society is always changing. So make sure that you read, attend trainings where SPSS is being done, NP or ETC, get books, read, try to understand. And you should know the data analysis techniques, at least to a certain extent, that if someone is talking about a p-value in quantitative analysis, you understand what is happening. Regression analysis, you need to understand. Inference, you need to understand. So if you don't understand inference in statistics and you are presenting, it will not make sense. I'm sure you do agree with me there. Chair, that was my short presentation. I hope it does contribute to the people on this forum to find a certain way to move forward. I thank you and I invite questions if there are any or comments. Over to you, Chair. Hello, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lole.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Lole, for that wonderful presentation. I think we have 10 minutes to let us ask questions and then thank you so much. Okay, we start asking questions.
Since there are no questions, no comments, maybe I can pull down the presentation.
Okay, that is okay. That is fine. Since there are no questions, you can put down the presentation. We go to the next presenter, who is Joseph Malambo, who will take us through presentation tips. So, Mr. Malambo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see a number of you here after a long time. You know, I tutor some of these courses, research methods and other courses. So there are some students who had asked me to say they wanted me to advise them on research. So I thought to extend the invitation to the PhD students, Mr. Matipedza Lole and Madam Nzovwa. But again, I thought to myself, just two people. So I also thought maybe we can extend the invitation. Actually, it's other people extended the invitation to the entire group so that we can be part of this small, short seminar, which I expected us to interact and speak, because we don't usually speak as GSB students, except from the comments here and there. Nevertheless, I have few things to comment about research, more especially those of you that will be presenting your findings and those of you that will be presenting your topics. Number one, when you be presenting, take a breath. Take a deep breath and act normal. Sometimes they will pose a lot of questions to you. Where you are not sure, tell them that you are not sure. But don't be discouraged. Sometimes they will tell you that you don't have a topic. Sometimes they will tell you you don't know your objectives. There's no problem. Don't be discouraged. As a master's student, from the knowledge that you've gained in your studies, apply it to your topic, to your problem statement, to show that you understand what you're talking about. Then you hear one of the presenters says, okay, maybe what you're looking at is this. Then you're good to go. Unlike where they send you back, you can't say anything. They send you back so that you go and look for another topic so that you can present the other time. So have the confidence, be you, respond, and know the topic, know the problem statement, know the research process itself. Mr. Lole has presented on methodology. Know what is for qualitative, know what is for quantitative. Don't use for quantitative for what is for qualitative. You show that you're not serious with what you do. And also, the other thing that I wanted to share is, I'm sharing my camera is on. Hope you're able to see. Is only the sharing tips, because at times they will chase you if you are not sharing on time. So you can also look at the sharing tips. They are very important, as we wish you the best as you'll be presenting your presentations, either the findings. So you go on your laptop. Remember, you're able to see what is on the screen. You come here on share screen, this button. So when you click on the share screen, there's this tab which comes. This tab which comes. So there is Microsoft Edge. So if you've opened some things or windows, they will pop here. Or there is a window if you want to share a specific window. For example, this window. If you want to share the window, you click. After you click on the window on a specific window, you click on the screen here. When you click on the screen, you share here. So you'll be able to share. I'm sharing this window. That's what you are seeing as me sharing. So that's just the window that I'm sharing. Then I go on stop sharing there. I want to share the entire screen. So I'll go again on this button, on this share screen. So I'm sharing screen. I go on share screen. Then I'm going on entire screen, because they will ask you to put on presentations mode. For you to put on presentations mode, you need to share the entire screen. So I go on the entire screen. When I go on the entire screen, I'm coming here again where there is this thing that has come here. So I click here. When I click there for entire screen, then I come on this button down here where it says share screen. So I'm sharing the screen. So when you share your screen, since you are sharing the entire screen, which you are able to see right now, you avoid going to your photos and other things, because you have already opened your presentation. So you can even hide this, hide share, not stop sharing, but hide this. Then you come here on your presentation. So when you come on the presentation, you need to put on the presentations mode. You want to see the entire screen. So as you go on the presentation mode, you come here where they say start presenting, this button. You click on this button, or you can click on this button where it says slideshow down here. So I prefer this one. So it's the same. So if I click there, it shows the entire screen. That's what you're seeing just there. Then from there, you begin to present. You tell them your name, your program, your ID, not the ID number, just your name, the program, the outline of your program. Then you begin to present. So now you've seen this thing that it showed these animations. These, they waste a lot of time. They don't allow such things. You don't need to put them in your presentation. It must be simple so that you do not waste time. And as you present your topic, as you present your presentation, you don't read everything word by word. You are presenting, you are telling a story. And so, this was just an overview of how you should be able to do what? To present. And if possible, for example, when you are dealing with the methodology aspect, the literature review, put a literature review matrix, you show the gaps and all those things, the author, the years and all those things, just get 5 for your presentations are more than enough. You need to show the title, author, findings, the methodology they used, the relevance, the data, the gaps that are in the study. Then when it comes to if possible, when you're dealing with the methodology, you need to, if possible, you can separate. If you're dealing with a mixed method approach, you need to put on the other side, you have this side, you have quantitative, this side, you have qualitative. You are able to show what is the population. You put the population. What instruments are you using to collect the data? What is the sample size? What is the purpose? You put them clearly to differentiate. I think I end here, unless if there are questions or contributions. That's what we had for you for today. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malambo. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It's very short. I will invite any questions, please. If there are any questions regarding any part of the presentation for tonight, please ask the questions. Yes, please ask the questions. It may be on research methodology or statement of the problem or presentation tips. Please ask questions. We have a few minutes to go. If you are not, we will go. Yes, Carol, you can ask your question. I see your hand up.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the presentation. My only query is that would it be possible to have maybe the presentations recorded? Because some of us have challenges with the internet, so you find that maybe it's breaking at one point, or it completely goes off, like we're logged out, and the time we log in again, we have to catch up and we're behind. And for me, I couldn't see any of the presentations. I think my network was so bad that I couldn't see anything that was being presented. I could only hear the audio, but at some point it was breaking. Thank you.
Okay, it's hard to hear that. That was a terrible experience indeed. We'll ask the organizers of this seminar to share the slides or present it. I'm sure maybe it was recorded or not recorded, but we'll try to share maybe the slides for the presentation that we can just go through as we put ahead in our slides. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Austin, you can ask your question.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My question goes towards topic formulation. I would like to get some clarity because sometimes I really get lost on topic formulation, whereby when someone just reads the topic, they're able to say that this is qualitative, quantitative, or mixed. What terms, what word do we usually use for such?
I think that is for Madam Nzovwa. You can respond on that, Madam Nzovwa.
Thank you. I was actually going to say I'll hand this over to Mr. Lole.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Nzovwa. You see, topic formulation or what determines whether it's going to be quantitative or a qualitative study, you don't just wake up and come up with a topic. No. You start off by reviewing your literature. if there's an area that you're interested in, maybe SMEs that are not performing well in Lusaka, has anyone written anything about them? And if ever they did, what method did they use? Did they use most of those writers? Did they go for qualitative or did they go for quantitative? What is the problem? Whatever was written on was it ever addressed? This is why when issue is coming up, the other model is important. You then look at the objectives that you want to achieve after reading, and you can work from your objectives now back to the title or the topic of your research. You're now working back. You're saying, oh, okay, so one of the objectives is to find out how these SMEs are performing. Why are they failing to get loans? Is it the issue of security? And if you then establish through literature that it's the issue of security, you are now thinking along that gap to come up with a topic. So when you then come to the issue of whether it's a quantitative or a qualitative, you don't just guess. You will be informed of how others have actually done it. But then, when you then think of it as a quantitative, there are certain ways that you then use, that show that you are measuring something, you are quantifying something. But I think that is a topic for another day. But what I wanted you to understand is that don't just, there's a method for how we can come up with a topic. Chair, I don't know if it is clear what I'm saying.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lole. Mr. Austin, was it clear or do you need more clarification? I think that was a very good explanation on my side. Mr. Austin, was it clear?
Yes, it was clear. I understand. You can work from your objective research, then come to the topic. I always thought you have to come up with the topic, then start looking for your objectives and questions.
Wonderful. You can ask your question.
I wanted to just add to what Mr. Matipedza Lole has mentioned. Sometimes people think of a topic, sometimes people think of a problem. It all depends with a person. Maybe because you are in HR, so you're thinking about retention. So maybe I can start on retention. But as you are studying on retention, work retention or performance in a work environment, or maybe you work in the streets with council, you only see that there is always dirt in the streets. So you think of carrying a study with council on hygiene or bins or anything, or maybe street vending or drainages. There's a problem that you've identified. Now, what determines qualitative or quantitative? It is in the problem statement, like Madam Nzovwa had presented. And also, what are you trying to achieve? Do you want to get an in-depth understanding, like Mr. Matipedza Lole was talking about? Are you going to carry your study with qualitative? You want to get people's perceptions, understanding of feelings, or you're going to use numbers. You want to quantify, you want to have percentages. Are you going to have a bigger sample because it is quantitative? What Mr. Matipedza Lole was talking about. Are you going to use quantitative data? You want to quantify for a larger population? Or you want to have a specific, in the hospital, you want to find out about it, the nurses, you want to have a quality data. So the nature of a study would demand, the problem is the statement itself would demand what type of research method you are going to carry out, which would, the problem statement will come back to the research objectives. Then the research objectives will drive the research itself. Even the research philosophy, which we've not talked about, what philosophy is going to guide your study. Those are some of the simple issues that you can read about and all those things, which will guide now. So, okay, what I want to do is A, B, C, D. And also the research itself demands A, B, C, D. But what I advise people the most is that if you are carrying out a study, you want to do a mixed method approach, on your research objectives, have the what. What are you trying to? What is really happening right now? Then have the why. Why are there challenges? Why are there A, B, C, D? These 1 and 2 can be quantitative. You want to quantify and show figures and those things. Then the how question can be qualitative. You want to give now the solution to answer to your research problem. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have come to the end of our seminar tonight. I just want to mention that we have a very good tutorial group where we learn more on courses, first stage, second stage. Yes. So you are all invited. You can box me, and yes, we can learn together on how we can progress together. Thank you so much. I think this is the end. Thank you to the presenters and thank you to the participants. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good night.